Hello guys, this is Tessie One Life from Realtor here in Nigeria, and today I'm going to be talking about how to protect yourself when you're buying a land with the title Excision in Progress, as promised. Okay, so if you listened or if you watched my last video, you would understand what I mean by Excision in Progress, and if you don't, you might want to go back and please be sure to go back and watch the video so you'd understand better. Okay, so for the excision in progress, it may go one of two ways. Like I said, someone might tell you that they have a piece of land that they've applied for excision. So once they've applied, then they can tell you excision is in progress, right? But this process might take a long time. This is the reason why these lands are usually cheaper than the other stronger titles, because you know that processing a CFO or a governor's consent or even the government excision itself, it takes time, it takes money. This is the reason why those lands are usually more expensive. You'll be hearing millions depending on the location. But for these ones that says excision in progress, the process is just starting or it started, maybe it's almost ending, whatever the case may be, it's usually cheap. You'll be hearing like 800, 600,000 naira, depending, or even less than 500k, depending on where you're buying from. Okay, so this is usually a bit of a question mark because you might end up losing your money if you're not careful. So I'm going to be telling you how to ensure that you don't lose your money in this video. Okay, so um, sometimes when people apply for excision for a particular piece of land, they might make a mistake of doing it in a land that the government has plans for. This sometimes is not necessarily their fault, although everyone they're supposed to go and carry out investigation on that particular piece of land. But for the sake of this video, let's say someone applies for excision in a particular land that the government wants to build a hospital in, or let's say it's close to the road and they want to do road expansion. Obviously, the government is not going to approve that thing. But because they've applied for it, they'll tell you excision in progress. Then you now go and buy and you keep waiting and waiting and waiting. At the end of the day, your money is gone, you don't have land, nothing. So, but sometimes it can happen in a place where the government will eventually release the land, probably obviously because they don't have use for it or whatever the case may be. So you now as the buyer, as someone that maybe you want to buy at a very cheap rate and then sell at a very expensive rate, or you just don't have the money for a more secure title, one thing you can do to protect yourself is to make sure you buy from a reputable company. I've said this before, but in this particular case, it's very important because if the government doesn't approve the excision for that particular piece of land, you would have lost. But when this happens, the applicant has an they have an opportunity to apply for what we call ratification. Now, when they're applying for this ratification, perhaps I'll explain more about this in the next video, depending. Well, this ratification costs a lot of money. And some persons, if you're buying from an individual, they might not really be inclined or they might not want to apply for this ratification because it costs money. And that means you will be on the losing end. But when you're buying from a reputable company, they would they will have an incentive or they would have a reason to apply for the ratification because they want to protect their reputation or because stuff like that. So the company would obviously want to, on your behalf, apply for that ratification, as opposed to where if you don't do that, the person might just plain abscond, or they might tell you to come and pay for the ratification, and that thing might even be more expensive depending on what you paid for the land in the first place. So you can see the headache, which you can avoid if you buy from a reputable company. Another way you can protect yourself is by watching out for the indemnity clause. The indemnity clause basically is just something that states in your deed of, okay, some of you might not necessarily know this, but when you buy a land, there are some other charges that you pay beyond the cost of that piece of land. They call them statutory charges. It comprises of development fee if you're buying from an estate, deed of assignment because you're going to prepare the documents, stuff like that. Again, perhaps I'll explain that in more detail in some later video. But during the process of processing your papers and you signing the documents, you want to make sure that there's an indemnity clause in that contract, right? That indemnity clause just basically states that if that land that is tagged excision in progress, if that land is eventually not excised, or the government for whatever reason, they will give you another piece of land. So this means you paid for a piece of land, and no matter what happens in the process of the excision, you would eventually get a piece of land from this company. So that way you are protected. You know that, okay, when you're buying an excised piece of land, you want to make some findings and make sure that that particular place is actually, government does not have plans for it, right? This is something that if you're buying from a reputable company, they would have already done these findings, and they would not even tell you excision in progress if the land is in a place that the government has plans for. You get. So in a nutshell, before I start talking in circles, you want to make sure you're buying from a reputable company. And the second thing is that you want to watch out for the indemnity clause. That way, you're buying cheap, but you know that you're protected, and no matter what, you get your land at the end of the day. So let me stop here before the video gets too long. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was helpful. If you have questions, drop it in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. And that will be it for now from me. Bye.